Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from a brewer we've only had one or two beers from in the past, and this is Brouwerij West. That's B-R-O-U-W-E-R-I-J. That is the Dutch word for brewery. It sounds nearly identical to the German Brouwerij, although they do have slightly different pronunciations, albeit spelled differently. But Brouwerij West. This is Bunny Fuku, a hazy IPA. This one clocks in at 7.3% ABV, and they've used two different hops in this one, Citra and Nelson Sauvin. And Brouwerij West is based in San Pedro, California. So the first thing to talk about on this beer is the very interesting label art. It's got what looks like a purple tiger with kind of some pop art or a double-headed. I don't know how to describe it, but it's got kind of a cut-out label in the shape of bunnies all over it with this interesting design. I don't know if the camera can pick it up very clearly and kind of letting the metal of the can show through. Like on this side, where there's just almost a solid yellow, you can most clearly see that these cutouts in the label for making this are all bunnies. It is very, very cool. That's easily one of the neatest labels I've ever seen. Nonetheless, label art aside, we're going to get this cracked. We're using our nice all-purpose tall glass here today. Works great for all beer styles. I particularly enjoy it for IPAs. So let's get this poured right in. Yep, that is quite light in color and indeed does appear to be quite hazy. It actually looks quite thick pouring out as well, which you can often get with the hazy. So, visually, yep, that is indeed exactly as advertised. It's very, very hazy indeed. It's a very light, a very pale yellow, a true yellow, a bright golden yellow. There's really no hints of orange in this at all. It is a true, deep, light shade of yellow, and it is very occluded, very hazy indeed. Formed quite a nice, thick, creamy head, as should be quite evident even on the camera. It has a very tight, it had a quick, tight rush of carbonation that ran up as it was pouring and settling, and that obviously contributed to this very lush, very thick head. This is quite hazy indeed, and so hazy, in fact, I can't really see what the rest of the carbonation is doing in this beer, but I do know, at least on the onset, it helped to create this wonderful, thick, pillowy head. So let's get right up over this for a sniff. Oh yeah, that smells quite nice. So there's a lot of different elements popping out of this glass to me. I'm getting, obviously, citrus is pretty common in any beer that has a citra hop. I'm definitely getting that. I'm getting grapefruit, I'm getting lemon, I'm also getting oranges. On the nose here, there's also some more subtle kind of earthiness coming from the hop bill as well. You can really pick that out. I'm not getting anything that smells resinous at all. I am definitely getting kind of some underlying tropical fruit aromas. Maybe a little bit of pineapple. So it's got kind of a blend of different kind of hop aroma characteristics to it, but it smells very, very nice. It's very hop dominant. It's very hop forward, as you would expect. Citra and Nelson Sauvin, both pretty high on the alpha acid spectrum. So we'll see whether or not they're just using these hops for their aroma profiles, their flavor profiles, or if they put them in there long enough in the right stages to extract a bunch of those alpha acids in, and it's got a nice kick of bitters. We will soon find out, but a very lovely hazy with a wonderful aroma, thick creamy head. Let's just jump right in. Ooh, that's nice. Yeah, that's very nice. Okay, so I would say the name of the game on this one is balance. It's very, very well balanced. This is a beer that has enough of a hop bite. They did use some high alpha acid content hops, but that's not like the dominant driving force here. This one is kind of to the classic hazy formula. We're going to extract a bunch of aroma, big bold in your face aroma, and a bunch of hop characteristic flavor without making it so pungently bitter that that drowns out all the rest of the sensory experience. So you do get a nice kick of bitters up front, but it dials back relatively quickly. into a more manageable level. So there is kind of some lingering bitters on the palate. Where they're lingering for me is kind of on the front mid part of my tongue. It's not lingering on the back where you tend to get the intensity of earthy, really long lingering bitters. It's kind of in the middle front part, which is nice. And it feels like it's dialed back to after roughly this 30-second mark, give or take. It feels to me like it's probably sitting somewhere in the 15 to 20 IBU range, at least from my perception. So it's nice. It's not over the top. There's still enough in there. Like, yeah, you're clearly drinking an IPA, but it really is more about what aromas and what flavor characteristics are we pulling out of here. So I'm getting a good bit of earthy kind of back to it on the flavor profile that is driving from the hops. I'm also getting some very floral-like notes as well. On the front side, it did much more closely match what I got in the aroma. There was a good bit of citrus that came out on the front, and there was also a little bit of that tropical edge. The kind of pineapple aroma that most hops give off does actually give off kind of a pineapple-like flavor profile in the beer. It doesn't always linger, but it was very distinct and very noticeable in this, and that kind of mixes with that underlying kind of earthy bitterness as well as the kind of floral bitterness. There's only a subtle suggestion of citrus bitterness, kind of rind-like citrus oil quality coming out of this one, at least to my perception, but the actual flavor was there coming from the hop profile itself. So very, very nice. It tastes very, very well balanced, and I like what they did with this. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip. We're going to let all of the flavors re-intensify. We're going to talk about the body and the mouthfeel, which was also nice, but I'll get specifics. And then we'll talk about the finish. But overall, very, very nice, very approachable Hazy IPA. Take two. Yeah. For 7.3, this beer has real presence. That body feels like a true full medium heavy. It almost borders on heavy. It's got a lot more weight, a lot more oomph, a lot more presence behind it than you would anticipate for an IPA in this range. Now, I did notice like it looked quite thick as I was pouring it. And yeah, it clearly is kind of matching perception to what I saw visually. It does have some heft behind it. The same is true of the resistance, the mouthfeel. It does have quite a lot of resistance, much more than you would expect for 7.3% ABV. It's got a lot of feel to it. It's got a lot of viscosity, a lot of thickness. It really does a good job of coating the palate. This is one also that when you agitate, it does start to feel quite creamy. It doesn't get silky. It doesn't get foamy. It doesn't really thicken. You can just feel how creamy it is texturally as you move that resistance across the palate. It's quite nice. On second sip intensification, there's really nothing new that I'm picking out of this other than upon the second sip, I'm definitely getting a little more perception of bitters coming out of this. It definitely feels to me like a more bitter forward beer than I got on the first sip. And that just could be because of the added thickness, how well it coats the palate, and then those lingering hop qualities just sticking those bitters to the palate. I'm still getting the bulk of the bitters kind of dominant on that kind of front middle part of my palate. They're not really lingering on the back, which is not as common in an IPA, but that's where it's hitting. And it's quite nice. In terms of the finish, this does have a bit more of a hop dominant, hop forward presence to it, and that does include the bitters compared to, say, your average hazy. This is definitely big. It's definitely bold. This is a much more in-your-face beer. And 7.3% on a hazy, that is getting in the higher end of the spectrum. And certainly that is also paying dividends on the finish category as well. So there are these lingering bitters. Again, like I said, once you hit about that 30-second mark, it dials back to somewhere in that 15, 20, maybe 25 IBUs that it seems to my perception, which isn't sky high at all, but it's not light either. And it does kind of hold there for quite a while. So the finish does get a lot of mileage out of it. And really where this finishes for me has a mix of citrus, floral, and earthy kind of bitters lingering on the palate. And it's not just the bitters. I'm also getting distinctly those hop flavor characteristics independently of the bittering that is quite clear: citrus, earthy, and floral. That's the three. It's very, very nice. This is a very well done, excellent, excellent hazy IPA for my money. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder than your average hazy. But this is one that easily, it's not so bitter that it would turn people off that don't really like West Coast style IPAs, and it's not so tame that people that are just hop head or die kind of mentality would take this and say, nah, it's not for me. I do think this is one of those kind of bridge gap kind of IPAs out there. It's excellent. It kind of wears multiple hats, and I really, really like it. This is much better than I anticipated. I haven't had enough beers from Brouwerij West to be able to kind of pick out what their shtick is, but I got to say this one is excellent, and I will definitely be trying to find more beers by this brewer. Awesome, awesome, hazy. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, count my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Brouwerij West's Bunny Fuku, a hazy IPA clocking in at 7.3% ABV. This was a 2-hop hazy, Nelson Sauvin and Citra, and Brouwerij West is based in San Pedro, California. So this was another one of these beers that just seemed to have it all across the board. Huge aromas coming off of this beer. A lot of subtlety and a lot of different aroma character traits, different blends of earthiness and fruit and floral and citrus. It was really, really nice, really pungent. The taste was the same thing. Tons of layers of complexity to the flavor. A really nice kick of bitters. It had real presence. No surprise here. This beer did earn, and I think a well-deserved, perfect 10 out of 10 in all categories for a perfect score of 100. All 10 categories, that's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, finish, head/retention, appearance, balance, feeling/intangible, and example of this style. Well deserved. This was just about as close to hazy IPA perfection as I've ever had. I've had a few that are just miles ahead of the competition. This is easily one of those. There's a lot of hazies out there. This is one that is absolutely worth your time to seek out if you're into the hazy IPA thing. I mean, this just checked all the boxes across the board. I was absolutely stunned by this beer in the most pleasant way possible. If you're an IPA fan, hazy IPA fan, do yourself the favor, do what you got to do to get your hands on some of this beer. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.